So good morning and welcome everyone to the 6th Discovering Buddhism module at Jamyang Buddhist Center, London. This weekend, we will deepen our understanding on all about karma. My name is Jackie Yip and I'm a volunteer supporting the spiritual program coordination team at Jamyang as the Lama liaison and also the coordinator for the Discovering Buddhism live course. The team members are Kamlo Chen Daffy, our new SPC, Rona Sayer, the basic program coordinator, Rona and Mike Murray, our Discovering Buddhism assessors, and Andreas Kondo, the Jamyang board member carrying the board's interest in the Buddhist education program. All of us are under the guidance of our resident teacher, Geshe Tenzin Namdak, and our center director, Honorable Fabian Perdal. Geshe Namdak on behalf of Jamyang London team and all students joining through Zoom here today, we would like to say thank you for giving this course live on Zoom. Geshe-la will now lead us in the prayers before teachings. So before Geshe-la starts, we will screen share the prayers. We will also mute everyone. And then you can join to recite together with Geshe-la. You will also have a copy of these prayers in the file that I would have sent to you a few days before this class. We will also be taking your attendance, so please make sure that your names are clearly displayed. If there are two of you, please display both names. And we will also give a very brief announcement before tea break. And also please feel free to give us your feedback and comment in the chat box and also our Facebook page. So over to you, Geshe-la.
All right, good morning, everybody. First of all, I can see everybody. Yeah, it's better. Yeah, good morning. Welcome again to this beautiful Zoom day, as said just before. So we're gonna have, we're gonna have a day about karma, and the day about karma, we try to, first of all, before we start with the prayers, try to generate correct motivation, because karma is something quite important to be understood, not only for achieving happiness for self, but also if you understand karma well, you also how to relate with others and can help others to achieve more stable forms of happiness, because everything depends on law, of course, and effect. And we have to learn how to create the right causes for the right results to come about. So that's why we're here today. So try to generate a motivation according to those lines, or even better, those who are more familiar with the Lamrim, then try to generate a wish for precious human rebirth to be obtained for the purpose of progressing on the spiritual path. And which spiritual path? To liberation and enlightenment. Yeah, so the most superior motivation, of course, is to want to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. And for that purpose, you have to understand karma, because even the Buddha strives for an all-knowing mind to understand the most subtle levels of karma, right? So that means the Buddha strives for states beyond any obstacle to know reality. Yeah, so that's why what prevents us to become a Buddha is what is called obscurations to omniscience. Yeah, that's obscurations that prevents us from becoming all-knowing. And why all-knowing? Because an all-knowing Buddha knows everything about karma. You know, so then you can be of real benefit of sentient beings. You know, so that's why, for us, not having even you know, a little bit of clairvoyance to help others. So at least if you know a little bit more about karma, we will be able to know more how to lead sentient beings to more stable forms of happiness. So that's why we're here today. So try to generate that motivation. And then before we start with the prayers, then yeah, in front of yourself is Sakyamuni Buddha, surrounded by the different masters of India. You can think about the 70 pendants, the 84 Mahasiddhas of India, like all other masters of India. And then you think about the masters of Tibet, of the 4 traditions in Tibet. And you can also think about all the masters of the Theravada tradition, of the Chinese traditions of Buddhism. And then surrounding yourself you imagine the sentient beings of the 6 realms and they undergoing individual suffering, and focus upon their suffering, think without understanding karma, without really understanding the real cause for happiness and the causes for suffering, I will not be able to help them. So that's why I'm here and going to lead them in the prayer. Yeah. You have the prayers? Yeah. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arat, perfect complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct. Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of human beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror, Sakyamuni, I prostrate and make offerings, go for refuge. To Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arat, perfect complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct. Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of human beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha Bhagavan, the glorious Sakyamuni, I prostrate and make offerings to go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arat, perfect complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of human beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Bhagavan, the glorious Sakyamuni, I prostrate and make offerings, go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arat, perfect complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sagata, know the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror Sakyamuni, I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge. When a supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you played down the 7 strides and then said, I am supreme in this world. To you, wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you prostrate. With supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you prostrate. Thus free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit, God is like a vast ocean. To you, the one come the dustness, I prostrate. The purity that frees from attachment, the virtue that frees from the lower realms, the one part sublime pure reality, the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified for realization, were devoted to the moral precepts, to use sublime community, intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions, engage in perfect wholesome actions, subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a definitive view, a bottle and flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud, seek conditions things as such. Though these merits may all sentient beings attain the rank of sea, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from subsiding ocean, perturbed by the waves, aging, sickness, and death. I prostrate to the 3 noble, rare, sublime ones. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on a vast virtuous mountain in Rajgir, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration of the characters of phenomena called profound affection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara looked upon the very practice of the profound affection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty in nature. Then, to the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara, how should any son of the lineage who wishes to practice activities of profound affection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice activities of profound affection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeating, beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness not other than form, and form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stateness, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness has no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, and up to including no mind element and no mental conscious element. There is no ignorance and no extinction of ignorance, and so on, and up to including no aging and death, and no extinction, aging, and death. Similar, there's no suffering, origination, cessation, and parts. There's no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas who lie and dwell in perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also manifestly complete awakening to the unsuppressed perfect complete enlightenment, and relying on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacified all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata, Gata Gata, Paragata, Parasamgata, Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice profound perfection of wisdom, just as you indicated in Ivritsadikata's rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva and Arya Avalokitesvara, and those surrounding there entirely, along with the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised by the Bhagavan. From the holy supreme realm of Kachara, you who possess the power of clairvoyance and magic elimination, look after practitioner like a mother for a child. The host of the kings of the three abodes are prostrate. Akasamarasasna samara samarayapi, akasamarasasna samara. Akasamarasasna samara samarayapi, Tayata, Gata Gata, Paragata, Parasamgata, Bodhisattva. By the teachings of the three noble, rare, sublime ones, possessing the power of truth, may hindrance be averted, may they be eliminated, and may they be pacified. May all enemies and negative forces opposed to the Dhamma be completely pacified, and may the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified, and may be free from harmful conditions to the Dhamma, and may all actions be in accordance with the Dhamma, and may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here, right now. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure Guru. Correctly devoting to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This life is impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like the shadow follows the body, the reasons of white and black karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric suffering is the door to all, seeking samsaric pleasure is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain, cannot be relied upon. Recognize these shortcomings, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the Pratyimoksha vow. And please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all modern migratory beings. Please bless me and see this and train Supreme Bodhicitta with the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta but do not practice the three types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the Bodhisattva vow with great energy. Once I pacify distraction to wrong objects and correctly analyze the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified part of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general part, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I've become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the Gurus who show the noble paths and the spiritual friends who practice their very long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, never separated from perfect Gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of states and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Sa Je Ge Jo Je Dram Ri Ra Re Ne Ye Ye Ba Re Sang Ye Je Du Ne Te Wa Ye Dragena Da Je Je Bar Jo Idam Guru Rama Neyataya Mi Sangye Chedan Zuni Tsuna Chanjo Bada Dani Gyazu Ji Dagi Chuchu Kiba Tsuna Dola Penche Sangye Doba Jo Sangye Chedan Zuni Tsuna Chanjo Bada Dani Gyazu Ji Dagi Chuchu Kiba Tsuna Dola Penche Sangye Doba Jo Sangye Chedan Zuni Tsuna Chanjo Bada Dani Gyazu Ji Dagi Chuchu Kiba Tsuna Dola Penche Sangye Doba Jo Quand il touche une jeu, t'as entendu pas moi dire, t'as entendu. Quand on dit là, tiens ça. Yeah, karma. So, karma. Yeah, why? Why karma? Because it helps us to understand all sentient beings want happiness and don't want suffering, and how to accomplish those aims in life. Yeah, so we just read, and that's a very important quotation actually. There's just one verse summarizing the Tripitaka, summarizing the three higher trainings, summarizing actually, you know, the Buddhist teaching. Yeah, so we just read, do not commit any unwholesome actions, engage in perfect wholesome actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is a teaching of the Buddha. So that one verse condenses basically the whole teaching of the Buddha. Yeah, in monastic institution, we do bi-monthly confessions, and then we read, or the abbot, the abbot reads from memory the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, or the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra is recited in a condensed form. Mostly it's recited in a condensed form, especially in modern times when everybody's getting busy, also in the monastery sometimes we're getting more busy. But yeah, sometimes there's so many other things to do, so then the condensed version has been recited. But even if there's not a complete Sangha community present, then the monks can still recite this verse, you know, as representing the whole sutra of morality, you know. So, and yeah, that's the meaning that this verse actually condenses all the three higher trainings. Yeah, we talked about it before. Those who did Discovering Buddhism from scratch, or from the beginning, so to say. If I ask you, what are the three higher trainings, then people will straight away say, but now you're muted, so you cannot really, you can say it, but I don't hear. But yeah, so the higher training of morality, right? That's the basis of our path. Yeah, without morality, then we will never be able to progress. And that's also true in society. We know that without morality, it becomes a mess. Yeah, so that's why a certain amount of morality has to be present, you know. And that's the basis for happiness, you know, and the basis for peace. Also, if people abide by certain rules and regulations, same what we saw with the pandemic, if people abide by the rules, everything becomes easy. If people make a bit of a mess out of it, then it becomes difficult. Yeah. So for our mind, it's even more the case. Of course, we have physical, you know, physical and verbal behaviors, the morality of that, and we have mental behavior, right? We have the three levels of behavior. So it's easier to practice morality of physical and verbal behavior first, yeah, because it's easier not to, you know, punch a person in the face than not to shout at a person, and it's easier and not to shout at a person than to have a negative thought towards a person, right? So there's the levels of morality of body, speech and mind. So that's also what we're going to talk about today. That according to that level, it's easier to have morality of the body, activity, than of the speech. And then after that, the mind. Yeah? So morality is the first training, or also in the foundation of all good qualities, we just read the Pratimoksha vow, which is basically based on this morality. It says it's the basis or the root of the teachings. Yeah? So that means if you practice immorality, that's if you first cut off all coarse forms of distraction, then it becomes easier for the mind to progress. Yeah? So that's why morality is the first training of the three high training, the high training of morality. If the mind is trained well in physical and verbal behaviors, with the power of two mental factors we discussed many times before, alertness and mindfulness. Yeah? If you alert, oh, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. And with mindfulness, you remember why you shouldn't engage in those particular activities, because it harms self and others. Then with those two mental factors, you learn to be alert, and you learn to subdue your mind or subdue your behavior with mindfulness, to remember what actually you can and cannot do under certain circumstances. So if you practice those two mental factors from the point of view of physical and verbal behaviors, then later on, when you do meditation, you use the same mental factors, remember, as we did last time, to let your mind focus on its object of concentration. Then from the corner of the mind, there's alertness to make sure the mind doesn't get distracted or gets dull. Yeah, there's two obstacles of meditation. Sometimes we translate as laxity and excitement. Yeah, so laxity is this kind of mental dullness, and excitement is kind of the distraction of the mind. Yeah? So when we meditate, when the mind is too dull, then we can think properly. You know? When the mind is too distracted, same thing. You know? We can't focus. So we need those two mental factors to prevent it from happening. Same thing, alertness and mindfulness. Yeah? As soon as a distraction comes up, you be alert. And with mindfulness, you remember object of concentration. So you train those two mental factors in physical and verbal behaviors, first of all. Yeah? Because it's easier to train in physical and verbal behaviors than it is to train the mind. Yeah? So that's why morality is the basis of the path. Yeah? That's why it's called the first of the three higher trainings. The next higher training is a higher training of concentration. Right? In order to progress on the spiritual path, we have to have a certain amount of concentration. Without concentration, it's very difficult to meditate. And if we meditate and our mind is distracted all the time, then we're wasting our time. Yeah? So that's why we need concentration. Yeah? So that's why you actually see these two mental factors you train at a level of the higher training of morality, alertness and mindfulness. They help us in the next training of the higher training of concentration. Because then you try to concentrate on one object. As soon as the mind gets distracted or the mind gets dull, you be alert with alertness. And with mindfulness, you bring the mind back to the object of concentration. You see? So these two mental factors also has great benefits, as we saw in other fields of universal aspects of Buddhism, in psychology or people with mental issues, right? Like OCD or other kind of issues, anxiety, fear, different, less severe forms of schizophrenia. Basically, if people train next to medication with these two mental factors, then they learn how to think what they would like to think, or they learn to prevent negative thoughts from coming up. You know, the same thing as I mentioned many times before. Jeffrey Schwartz, who did this research with the OCD, and uses the same kind of two mental factors, though he calls it the power of mental force or the power of mental attention, but it talks about the same thing. Yeah, so that's going from the higher training of morality to the higher training of concentration. Then, is concentration enough or not? Just, having a mind that abides in a kind of very pleasant state without afflictions coming up at that time where you're meditating, is that enough or not? That's the question. For the time being, it's fine. But for the long term, it's a tool. Concentration is a tool. Yeah, and we went over the story of the person with long hair, meditation, a few months, you know, hair grows, nails, they grow. Yeah, one of my own teachers, who was 19 years in retreat, and also one time, yeah, hair was long and his nails were very long. Yeah, so there's a practice also not to cut at a certain time. But anyway, so, but Rinpoche didn't do only concentration. Rinpoche had concentration, but used it for the next higher training, the higher training of wisdom. Yeah, because if you have a tree and there's no wind, then the tree stays quite nice, you know. But if there's a lot of wind of the afflictions, then the tree moves, right? And the tree of the afflictions can only be taken away if the root has been taken away. Yeah? So that means that you need wisdom. So if you have cut a tree, then you can have the axe of wisdom and the hands of the stable hands of concentration, right? If you have a very sharp axe, so you're very intelligent, but you're lacking concentration, it's very difficult if you don't have stable hands to cut the tree. Or with a chainsaw, it's even more dangerous. If you don't have stable hands and you cut a tree with a chainsaw, then it's very dangerous. Yeah. Once when I was young, I was really into nature conservation and kind of those kind of projects. So I helped one of my uncles who was walking in one of those forests on the coast in Zeeland. And then also we were cutting some trees that had to be cut. But then also with the axe, I cut through to the leather of my shoe. But luckily it was just the leather of the shoe. But that means that, yeah, if you don't have a stable hand, then you cannot really cut properly. So that stable hand comes from concentration, right? And then you need a sharp axe of intelligence, of the wisdom. It goes together. So then you can cut the tree of the afflictions. But if you don't get away the root, then the tree will grow again. So you have to get rid of this ignorance that we talked about quite a few times before. And for that purpose, you need a mind that is exactly the opposite of this ignorance. Yeah, so we know in order to have antidotes to its afflictions, you need a mind that is actually the opposite. Yeah? So we cannot like person A and dislike person A at the same time. That means if we have a mind of patience, we have a lot of patience in our continuum. When there's manifest, anger will not be able to come up, right? And the other way around is also true. When anger is manifest, patience has difficulty to become manifest. So that means the object of, technically speaking, what we say, the object apprehension of what the mind actually holds on, or what the mind holds on to or apprehends from an affliction and from a constructive emotion, you know, that can be balanced. So that means if your constructive emotion has the power to have a correct understanding of reality, with practicing patience, for example, then the mind and anger will not come up. Same thing is true with ignorance. Yeah? You have to have a mind that realizes the real reality. Yeah? Same thing. If you get angry at a person, then basically the person we angry at is based upon the mental image we fabricate from that person. Well, the mental image is not the actual person. So where we get angry at actually is just our mental image of that person. It's not the actual person. But we think it's a person. That's not a problem. There's a few problems there. So yeah, so that's why we need wisdom to analyze what's going on. You know, so that's the three higher trainings. All in this verse: do not commit any wholesome actions, engage perfect in wholesome actions. Yeah. That's basically talking about morality, or the higher training of morality. Subdue your mind, right? So if you have concentration, then automatically the mind becomes more subdued. So if you have higher training of concentration, then automatically afflictions, what we technically call, that belong to the desire realm. You know, we have three realms. That's new for, what is it? DB students maybe. Did we talk about the three realms or not? The three realms? No, not yet. Or maybe in another course. But so there's three realms. This human realm is not the only one. And the animal realm is not the only one. There's other realms as well. Do you believe that or not? Yeah. So like spirits and those kind of people, kind of, yeah. We don't see them, so that's why we say, oh, they don't exist. Or gods, we say, oh, we don't see them, so they don't exist. But anyway, so just to get a picture clear, if you believe it or not, you examine, you know. But yeah, the Buddhist presentation is my responsibility to give the complete Buddhist presentation. If I just water it down to, of course, Buddhism, as I talked about many times, has many universal aspects, you know, philosophy and mind science, but also the spiritual part. Yeah? So here, basically, we're talking about the spiritual part. Discovering Buddhism, it says, right? It doesn't say discovering the universal aspects of Buddhism, discovering Buddhism. So I have to tell the whole part. So there's also other realms, you know, very nice realms, like God realms, you know, where we don't have this body as we have now, where you have to put food inside and things come out and tired and sleep is there. And, you know, it's not perfect. So there are realms in the God realms. So this body belongs to, so we have three realms, first of all. Desire realm, one. Form realm, the realm, or the, you know, the place of form, and the formless realm. There's three realms, you know? Desire, form, and formless realm. Yeah. So if you go to more, if you're more interested in the mind than this body, you know, that's our first step. Because most people on our planet, they're more interested in the body than in the mind, on the mind. You know, one of my friends, I haven't finished the shop yet, but one of my friends here, actually our venerable director, she went to do shopping and she said she went to a supermarket and she saw a magazine. And on the magazine it was a kind of how to look good on Zoom. So how to look nice, you know. Okay. Hair, everything, okay. So that's very interesting, yeah, because people do a lot of Zoom, so they also want to look good on Zoom. So there's meaning that's a lot of emphasis on the body, right? Yeah. So, but the body is quite limited, as we know. You know, you can only break a world record with a few split seconds or something in the Olympics, you know. So that's it. Well, the mind has much more capacity. You know, so that means that if you're just fed up with this kind of coarse forms of, and you have more interest in the mind and the inner happiness, right? Then you can imagine that you generate an interest in calm abiding, or what we say, concentration, in the second higher training. Yeah. So if you're more interested in the mind and concentration meditation, the mind becomes much more peaceful. There's much more happiness gained there than any happiness we can get from hanging out in the city and try to have fun, you know. So yeah, I went out a few times now already, 3 times. After 3 months being, I was 2 months in retreat, so then I don't even almost leave my room. But then last month also, so I went for 3 walks already. Yeah, 3. Yeah. So then you see people in the parks, you know, sitting there in a circle with all the bottles in the center. You know, not water bottles, but other bottles. So people like to have fun. But yesterday also was not very, if it's hot weather, okay, I can imagine. But if it's a bit cold, then drinking beer doesn't really look kind of the cause for happiness. But anyway, people thought that was maybe a cause for happiness there. But yeah, so you can see everything in our ordinary life. Of course, certain things bring a little bit of peace of mind, but the real happiness comes from the mind. Right? So if you're really interested in concentration and meditation, then you can imagine people, they really appreciate much more to stay by themselves and meditate, because there's much more satisfaction, you know. So if you generate more interest in that aspect, then you generate interest in the higher training of concentration. Yeah. So then you can be born in these states where there's more peace of mind than just having this body would only last for 80 years and then you get reborn again, you know. So in those higher realms, there's less suffering, you know. So that means that you subdue your mind, because if you're in the state of concentration, then these coarse afflictions of strong attachment, anger, jealousy, pride don't come up, you know. Yeah. So that's a kind of way of subduing the mind. Yeah? So that's what it says here, subdue your mind. But still, when you come out of that concentration and you have to face reality, then afflictions are not being abandoned yet, right? So that's why we need a higher training of wisdom, yeah? So subdue your mind thoroughly, completely, yeah? So that refers to wisdom, yeah? So that's the teaching of the Buddha. Anyway, so we're not there yet, yeah? We don't have calm abiding or realization of emptiness, yeah, of wisdom. So we're still on the level of the higher training of morality. And then the Buddha didn't even, karma is not something invented by the Buddha. Karma is, it's not invented by the Buddha. It's kind of a law of reality, which is not magical, kind of something, you know, kind of a magical thing out there. It's nothing else than cause and effect relationships. Yeah? So we have the flowers and the trees outside, yeah, and we have continuity of our consciousness. So that what is the cause and effect relationship outside, when you put a seed or a plant, like when Mahunu here, he made an incredible, beautiful garden, so we can sit sometimes in the garden, even when we're in the lockdown. That means that that's an external form of, if you have the right causes and conditions together, a flower will come, right? Yeah, so you can play with causes and conditions, but you cannot play with certain aspects of that reality. Meaning, if you want to have a yellow flower, but you have a seed of a red rose, then the seed of the red rose or the sprout of the red rose will never produce a yellow rose, right? So that means that there is something we cannot change. Yeah, we cannot change that an apple seed will produce a banana tree, right? That reality we cannot change, but we can play with conditions, right? So if we only want banana trees and don't want apple trees, then we make sure we get the right seeds and the right conditions for it to grow. Yeah. So for our mind, same thing. So that's an external law of cause and effect. We can play with conditions, but certain aspects, you know, is law of nature that we cannot change. In a similar way, our mind, same thing. That anger produces suffering. That reality we cannot change, right? Yeah, that reality we cannot change, but we can prevent anger from coming up. And then we prevent the results from coming into being, which is unwanted suffering, you see? So that means that the Buddha saw this reality. He didn't make it, he saw it and examined it. And then saw what is the causes for happiness and what is the cause for suffering. So that's karma, you know? Karma has more difficult to understand aspects. So karma, basically, we can divide into 3 levels. Yeah, so these 3 levels is very important. So you have to write down, because one exam I will ask you this question. Maybe not this one, but towards the end. So that means we have 3 levels of reality. Very important to understand. We have manifest phenomena, right? Like the screen, the computer. Manifest means something that can be directly perceived by sensory perception without the need for reasoning. Yeah, so things we hear, things we see, things we taste, we feel, touch, smell, you know. So the objects of the 5 senses basically are manifest phenomena. We can directly, we don't have to reason, you know. For my eye conscious to perceive you on the screen, it only needs to my eyes to be open. And of course, you have to be without certain kind of impairments, yeah, to be able to see things. But for the rest, there's nothing else to do. It's quite automatic. Yeah? So that's manifest phenomena, first level. Then the second one is called slightly hidden phenomena. Slightly hidden. First I give you write down the number 2 and number 3. Slightly hidden and very hidden. Slightly hidden and very hidden. Yeah. So Tibetan, same thing. Jungse means slightly. Shintu, kokyu, means very. Yeah, so slightly hidden and very hidden phenomena. Yeah. So there's 3 levels of phenomena, right? Manifest, slightly hidden, and very hidden. Yeah. So manifest phenomena we can perceive. Yeah? Slightly hidden, the next level is, for example, take a computer as example again, the screen or the color and the shape, as we say technically, are objects of the eye consciousness, right? the color and shape. Yeah? So the sound that comes out when you're not muted, then that's an object of the ear consciousness. Yeah? So that are manifest aspects of reality. I don't have to reason. Yeah, I can straight away perceive. But that this computer also has slightly hidden aspects. That means that the computer is momentary changing, is changing every split second, every hundredths of a second, thousands of a second, millions of a second, right? This kind of infinite. We cannot, you can go to a certain amount of digits, but there's no end to that, right? Yeah, there's no end to the subtlest moment. Yeah, so moment or time is not partless. You can divide time into more and more subtle moments. There's no end, right? So it's changing every split second and every hundredths of a second and thousands of a second. So to realize that aspect of this computer, I cannot see, right? Because it appears very, very solid out there. That only I can understand by using mental consciousness. The sense consciousness cannot apprehend that. We need mental consciousness and we need to analyze it. Yeah, that is momentary changing. Yeah. So that's one aspect. Also emptiness, we talked about, one of my favorite subjects. Last weekend we did a course on emptiness, actually, with Nalanda Monastery, about the 8 points of Prasangika. Actually, it was called the 8 difficult points, but I didn't tell them until we started. But yeah, that's emptiness. But yeah, so emptiness also, it looks very difficult, but with this, it belongs to this second level, slightly hidden. That means this computer also doesn't exist from its own side. It's in the nature of interdependence. Yeah, so that also I cannot see. That I can only realize by using reasoning with my mental consciousness, you see? So this computer has manifest aspects and hidden aspects. Yeah, so the manifest is the color and the shape, for example. Hidden aspects are its impermanent nature, the subtle impermanent nature, right? As well as the emptiness of the lack of concrete existence, because it's in the nature of interdependence. Those things only I can realize by the power of reasoning with mental consciousness, right? So that's the slightly hidden. Yeah? So karma, certain aspects of karma. So karma is not a manifest phenomenon. It's not classified. We cannot see, hear, think. Sorry, we cannot see, hear, taste karma, right? So there are aspects of karma that are slightly hidden. For example, that anger causes suffering, right? Anger has been classified as a non-virtue. Yeah, so that's why the Buddha said, do not commit unwholesome actions, because it produces suffering, and we don't like suffering, right? So that means that karma has a hidden phenomenon, but it has a slight hidden phenomenon aspect, like these coarse forms of karma, that anger produces suffering, right? Yeah, that we can reason by the power of an experience we had and then see, oh, where does this disturbance of the mind comes from? It comes from this irritation. Where does this irritation comes from? From this aversion and this anger. So that we can reason. That's one aspect of karma. There's other aspects of karma which falls in the third category of, what is the third category? I feel like a school teacher. Very hidden phenomena. Yeah, I have to just, crack people a bit up, because it's kind of, people sitting there on the other side of the screen. I'm sitting here on the other side. Yeah, hello, yeah. But yeah, so it's different than being here in the hall. But anyway, so karma is a hidden phenomenon, but has a slight hidden aspect, as we just talked about with anger, but also very hidden aspect. So this very hidden aspect of reality is something we at the moment, with our mental development or with the developments of science, we cannot perceive. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So a very hidden aspect of karma is, for example, you sitting here on the other side of the screen, in your living room, listening to my blah, 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 So you sitting there, I'm sitting here, nothing is random. When did we create the causes to meet today at this particular time, at this particular place? It's not that easy to reason, right? Because that depends on a huge amount of information, you know. It's like the prediction of the weather in London almost. A bit more complicated actually, but also to predict the weather in London is not that easy. It changes, you know, it changes quite often. Or Dharamshala, so I remember the prediction of the weather was not always very accurate. You know, that means there's so many factors that can influence, and one variable is influencing another one, and it's a very complex system. So the more complex a system is, the more difficult it is to understand it, right? So same with karma. You know, when we sit here together, is something that is created by cause and conditions. Nothing is random. But when and how and where did we create those causes and conditions? That's a question very difficult to answer for us ordinary beings. With science, we cannot prove it, you know. With our whatever we reason, we cannot prove it. So then we depend upon a valid person who has omniscience. So that's the Buddha. We started today the talk with the need for understanding karma. Why? In order to help sentient beings. Right? So a Buddha has an all-knowing mind. A Buddha has omniscience. He knows everything. You know, that's for us very difficult to comprehend. You know, it's very difficult. But you can understand if you get, for example, for us now to have clairvoyance, also very difficult. How would that be to read the minds of other beings? You know, what the person is thinking, or what is happening on the other side of the planet without looking at the internet, just by thinking about it and knowing that. That's for us difficult, you know. But certain aspects of clairvoyance has been examined, right? Yeah, like remote sensing. Remote viewing, for example. There's a lot of aspects of clairvoyance has been examined in a scientific way. You know, Russell Targ, for example, who was this kind of famous scientist when it comes to laser technology. So he went into remote viewing, and even the CIA got involved and NASA, and they put like $25 million in the project, which is kind of, you know, hardcore. You know, for 20 years or so. They were doing this project. So that means it's been examined. But for us, what is actually clairvoyance is also difficult. But then the Buddha has eliminated all obscurations. Yeah, we have obscurations to clairvoyance by not knowing certain things. And the Buddha has eliminated all forms of not knowing. Yeah, so that's the very hidden aspects of karma. Yeah, you see that? Yeah, so karma has those two levels of slightly hidden and very hidden aspects. Very important too. And then I have to go to the traditional outline, because otherwise we never finish. I just sometimes start talking and then there's no end. Sorry, it's like, yeah. But it's important because I find it very helpful to relate to karma in that way, that we actually know it's not something magical. And that generates a kind of faith, not just blind faith, but the faith based on reasoning, you know. What is this karma? How does it function? Why do I understand certain aspects and other aspects is more difficult? That we have to understand, you know. If you don't understand those aspects, then we will never get a real feel of it, you know. Yeah, so that's why the reasoning behind is very important. Yeah, so karma. So traditionally speaking, karma has 4 important points to be analyzed. Yeah. So that's the first bullet point I have here on the summary. So that means that karma, so this one you have to write down, or if you have written down, then you can highlight or something like that. So karma is definite. Yeah, that means that cause and effect are definite. Not that they exist from their own side, but that anger will produce suffering and love and kindness will produce happiness, right? Something virtuous produces happiness, non-virtuous produces suffering. The definition of non-virtue is, that's been explained as that which produces suffering. The definition of, what did I say? Did I say non-virtue, right? Yeah, yeah. Sometimes what comes out of my mouth and what I'm thinking is sometimes different, and then I make a mistake. But yeah, so non-virtue means that which produces suffering, right? Virtue means that which produces happiness. Yeah, that's this law of reality we cannot change, but we can play with the conditions we just talked about. So that means that karma is definite. Yeah, so a seed of an apple will never produce a banana tree. Same thing, right? So that law of reality we cannot change, but we can play with causes and conditions. So that's why in Tibetan there's a saying, Tendrel Dik. Tendrel means dependent origination. Dik means to organize. So that means we cannot organize interdependence by playing a creator or something. That's not possible. But we can play with causes and conditions. If you subdue your mind, you prevent causes from suffering coming into being, right? If you generate more constructive way of thinking, you create more causes for happiness. So that reality of cause and effect we cannot change, but we can play with causes and conditions. That's what it is. Yeah. So the first point is karma is definite. Yeah, that virtue produces suffering, and non-virtues produces suffering, and virtues produces happiness, not the other way around. Yeah. The second one is the increase. Karma has, point number 2, has the potential to increase. Yeah. So that aspect of increase means that it can multiply. Like a tree is a small seed, but can grow in a complete tree and produce a huge amount of fruit. Right? So karma, same thing. It has this potential. Yeah? A little bit of negative thought in your mind, for example, can be propelled and can become like a snowball effect. You know, like this person in I think it was in Russia or something. I use the example. He was in an apartment, outside people making a lot of noise. He asked them to please shut down, to be quiet. They didn't do that. They kept even making more noise, and then he shot them. You know, they were out of anger. You know, so that means, you know, that's one aspect of, not the real aspect we can talk about now, but that you can relate to it. How actually one small thought of aversion can produce incredible effect, right? Yeah, and it's also true for now creating a particular action, and then in the future it can build up like, you know, like a tree coming from a small seed. Yeah, so that's the power of increase. Yeah? So that's why we talked about purification quite a few times. Remember? We're going to talk about more tomorrow, but that's why those who already do some practices, it's very important for, you know, if you're serious with these kind of things, to do a little bit of purification every day to prevent this increase from negative deeds or negative thoughts. And that's why traditional, we try to recite 21 times the Vajrayana mantra. You know, that's a practice that can be done by those who are really serious. Not serious, yeah, serious and a little bit more into the practice, you know. There's a tradition of reciting the Vajrayana mantra with this 100 syllables, and it looks very long and it looks very difficult, but if you get used to it, it can be done quite quickly. Yeah, it can be done. Yeah, easy. Just by not switching on your light, but you know, sitting down and relax a little bit, and then before you know it, 21 recitations are done. Yeah, so I put a little bit inside, you see, and slowly down the line you get an idea of those who are interested in practice. Yeah. So the power of increase, right? Number 2. Number 3 is that you would not be able to experience the karma that is created in the continuum of somebody else. You will never experience the result of that. Yeah? If somebody else kills another human being, you will never put into prison, generally speaking, right? So if somebody else engages in a negative deed, you will not experience the result of that, because we have individual streams of consciousness, right? Yeah. So that makes us individual streams of consciousness. Though we have a lot of common things, we have common qualities and common faults, we all have similar afflictions, we all have similar constructive emotions, right? We share a lot of things together. Yeah, human beings, and not only human beings, all sentient beings. Basically, they share wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, right? But we have individual streams of consciousness. So that's why one person enjoys a pizza and the other person doesn't. Well, the pizza is exactly the same, right? Yeah, so that proves that we have individual experience, you know? So that also means that karma being created in your continuum cannot be experienced by somebody else, right? Yeah, so that's number 3. Yeah. Then number 4 is karma will not get exhausted, or the potential for the results to be produced will remain until the result is either being experienced or the potential for the result to come about is being taken away. Yeah, so that's number 4. And that's very important, as we talked about purification in the past, and we just touched it again right now with number 2, power increase. So that means that when karma is being created, an act stops, you do something, it finishes, it's not lost. That potential remains within the continuum, right? Yeah. So for negative karma, we can do purification with the 4 opponent powers. I will explain more, but we did already before. Yeah, so that means then if you purify, because karma is not fixed, we just talked about, right? It's causes and effect relationships, and you can play with conditions. So that means you can change karma. Yeah, one of my friends, I often told you the story about one of my friends being a very successful businessman in the past, based on calculations in astrology. All his business deals he calculated. He knew that sometimes he knew when the dollar went down, or many interesting things. He's a very clever guy. And he used these kind of incredible programs, and yeah, he's very good to predict things with astrology. Yeah, but then he also said if you predict the future for an ordinary being or a normal human being on the planet, you can say certain things, what will come in the future. But for a practitioner, he says, it's very difficult, very interesting. Why? Because the practitioner does kind of purification, accumulation of merit, as we call it. So that means karma is dependent on cause and condition. So if you play with that, then you can purify negative karma, right? It's an incredible proof, actually, to see something like this. So that means that a result, the potential for a result to come about remains, the potential remains there until the conditions are met, right? For our same thing. We all have the karma to die, right or not? Yeah, we cannot say we're not dying. Whoops. Yeah. We cannot say we're not going to die, right? It's going to happen. Yeah. So that means that that result is the potential for that result is still there. We cannot escape. Yeah? Certain aspects you cannot escape. But when we die, we can, yeah, to a certain extent, do something about it. Yeah, if that karmically is possible. Yeah. So, for example, one example of one of my friends in Singapore, very wealthy family, very wealthy. So then her father had cancer and was being given up by the doctors. So they flew in the best doctors. They had enough money to have the best treatment you can get in Singapore. And the doctors gave him 2 weeks. They said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. You know, in second opinions, other doctors said, look, nothing we can do. So that the result is coming close, right? Then they asked Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and Rinpoche checked if it's possible to play with conditions. You know, he said, okay, I try. So then he was with this person for 2 days, did all kind of, you know, playing with conditions, so to say, and this person lived for another 5 years, you see? So that means that with certain cause and condition you can play, yeah? Okay, but so that means that this point number 4, the result to come about, yeah, that potential we can play with, yeah? But when the result comes into effect, then that karma actually ceases to exist, right? So meaning that the karma for us to die in this life with this body, that ripens at the time of death, right? Yeah, because the next lifetime we have a different body again. So that means that result comes to ripening at the time of death. Yeah, you can relate to that. Yeah. So, but other forms of karma, or dying early in an accident, or having a sickness, you know, things can be done with purification from the point of view of taking the potential for the result to come about away, because karma is not fixed. Yeah? So with purification, we can do that. We come to that later on. First, we have the outline, yeah? the 4 points. Yeah? So that means that karma is definite from the point of view cause and result relationships. Then there's the power of increase, number 2. Number 3 is that you cannot experience karma you haven't created yourself, or the other way around, somebody else cannot experience karma you have created. And number 4 is that, you know, the potential remains until the results come about, or the potential for the results to come about is either being taken away. Yeah, you see that? That's the first 4 points of karma, to get a little bit to understand what karma is all about. So then, so when the Buddha said, do not commit unwholesome actions, you know, then he mainly focused upon the 10 non-virtuous, the 10 non-virtuous actions. Yeah, as I just said, we have actions of body, we have actions of the speech, and we have actions of the mind. Yeah, so it's all very logical and it's all classified in different groups. And yeah, I said before, just give me a number and I can give you a group in relation with that number. There's so many groups in Buddhism that is, you can play a game with, you call a number and then you give a division of something. Especially in Abhidharma, for example. I was not very good with Abhidharma and Vinaya, same thing. There's so many groups. And then the thing is, you mix 2 or 3 groups together and you make another summary. So you can imagine it's sometimes mind-boggling and the mind cannot remember everything. You know? So then I was always afraid to go to see one of my teachers whose mind was like incredible. He would just had a look at the material for 20 years and still remember everything, all the lists, all the debates. You know? So the present Rinpoche, for example, he's been quite well known for this capacity. Even His Holiness Dalai Lama sometimes in a teaching on Kuya Samaja ask him, what's the meaning of this again? So in the Root Tantra says this, in the commentary says that, so you can interpret it like this. So his mind is kind of, you know, like a storehouse of like a library. So when we studied Madhyamika, the middle way view, emptiness, I went to see him, you know, sometimes to debate or clarify things, very inspiring. But then when I reached, he was always happy to see me because, you know, we could talk about these kind of aspects of philosophy, you know, in depth. But then when I reached the points of Abhidharma and Vinaya, I was always a bit afraid to go and see him because he would ask me questions, you know, straight away when you come in. It's like a daily exam, you know, so then, and I knew that certain questions I would not be able to answer, and then you feel a bit embarrassed because he's your teacher and, you know, you feel kind of, but because his mind was so amazing that he just remembers, you know, and all the logic behind it and the reasons and the complete picture, you know, so it was, so that's a list and numbers. We have a lot of that. So, but it gives a lot of clarity, you know. Yeah, that's why the Buddha said, okay, we have activities of body, speech and mind, right? So we classify them. Yes, you have especially negative activities we like to prevent. Why? The Buddha said, okay, we all want happiness, don't like suffering. That's the nature of all human beings. That's the nature of all sentient beings, right? We all have this innate wish. As soon as there's a little bit of happiness, or when you wake up and you had a good dream, nice. And then you want to keep that feeling. And then you read something or somebody sends you a nasty SMS or WhatsApp message these days or something like that. You know, not many people use SMS these days anymore, but, you know, then it's you know, then you get a little bit kind of irritation comes. And that you don't like that. So that means that we don't like suffering and we like happiness. That's the nature, right? So in order to understand, you know, what the Buddha said, do not commit unwholesome actions because it's a cause for suffering. Very clever. The Buddha said, okay, do you want happiness or do you want suffering? Then people say, I want happiness. Okay, so then you have to create the causes for that. Nothing is random. You cannot just make a prayer, may I be happy, may I be happy, may I be happy. That's not enough, right? You have to act according to this law of reality. You know? So then the Buddha said, okay, start with the basics. Morality, we just talked about, right, in the beginning. Morality is very essential. the basis of the Buddhist teaching, or the root of the Buddhist teaching, as we just talked about. Because without morality, there's no possibility to go to the higher training of concentration. If you don't have concentration, you cannot cut the root of all suffering, ignorance, with wisdom. So you have to start with morality. You see that? That was my starting point today, the morality, because we're going to talk about it right now. Yeah. So what is morality? Morality is to abandon negative forms of behavior. And by the power of abandoning negative forms of behavior, you will not experience the result, which is suffering. You see? So, yeah, that's morality. So then the Buddha said, okay, let's start with the basics. So we have 3 moralities of the physical activities, 4 of the verbal activities, and 3 of the mind. Yeah, that's the 10 non-virtues. Yeah, so then the Buddha said, do not engage in killing. You know, it's something, I think, not only a Buddhist kind of principle, but considered as to be quite negative. Yeah? The act of killing. Yeah? That's the first one. The second one is the act of stealing. Of course, it's also being considered as something, you know, because it harms, right? So morality means that not only you yourself experience negativities from the result, but also you harm another human being, or human beings, or other creatures. So that's why the Buddha said, do not commit the act of killing, do not steal. And it's even according to law, same thing, right? Yeah. So not killing, not stealing. Then no sexual misconduct. Yeah? So to have sexual intercourse with somebody else's partner without consentment, yeah, because these days people do it with an agreement or something like that. But yeah, so that means that it can harm the relationships on both sides, right? Yeah. So that's what the Buddha said: do not engage in sexual misconduct. Yeah? So that are the 3, generally speaking. We go into more detail later on, but first the outline: the 3 of the physical activities. Yeah. Then there's 4 of the speech. Yeah. So that means that the Buddha said, do not lie. You know, basically lying is something to, yeah, to be abandoned, right? You deceive people. Yeah. So that's why lying is, and even in business, you know, people say, yeah, you get benefit out of that, but actually it's been well researched that if you're more honest, there's more success on the long term. So there's a lot of, even on business level, it's been very well examined. You know, I offer talk about this kind of potential project. It's a very interesting project. 2 of people I know who are kind of active, and they produced this book, kind of the world of the mind of a leader. A very interesting book. So that's not just a book that's based on scientific evidence. You know, that's published by Harvard Business Review reports, and they examined more than 35,000 leaders, CEOs of big companies, including the big ones of Google, etc., etc. You know? So they came to a few points that makes a person a successful leader, which is mindfulness, which is very popular, of course. If you not be aware of things that's going on, then you know you have to be concentrated, etc., etc. And the other 2, very interesting: compassion and selflessness. Very interesting pillars for a successful leader. You know? So you can see that on the long term, this kind of morality actually brings benefit. Yeah, so that's with lying, because some people think, you know, deceiving you get benefits, but it's very short term kind of, if there's benefit. Yeah, so that's why the Buddha said, do not engage in lying. Yeah. Then the first of the speech, yeah. The second of the speech is kind of slander or divisive speech, to try to divide people. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 people will go along quite well as friends, and you try to talk to each separately, try to separate them, yeah, or a group of people. That's very harmful, you know. So that's why the Buddha said, don't do that. Yeah, yeah. Then the third one of the speech is kind of harsh speech or insulting words, you know, saying nasty things to others with harmful intention. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's number 3 of the speech. Also, of course, that harms, right? Just saying something to a person in a very negative way the person walks away and thinks about the rest of the day, or maybe loses sleep, right? So it can be very harmful. Yeah. So that's the negativity of the speech as well. And then the fourth one of the speech is kind of, best translation is maybe senseless talk. You know, we often engage in that, you know, talking about the weather, that I just said, the weather, but talking about like nonsense, kind of things not very constructive. You know, I mean, we often engage into that. There's nothing really wrong with it, but is if it's constructive on the long term or not, we have to sense and check. And check the motivation. I did a lot of this activity when I was learning Tibetan, because to learn a language, you have to talk. And if you talk, you need material to talk about. So when I was in Dharamshala and the monks I was living with together, they didn't know English very well. So I was just talking about all kind of nonsense to get the language going, you know. So then, of course, it's kind of, but sometimes we engage in this activity, you know, without mindfulness, and then it's just, let's talk about this. And yeah, we do that, what people do on parties, and, you know, we all done that before, or still do sometimes. Yeah. So there's a kind of not very constructive way of going forward, yeah? Senseless talk. Yeah? Or sometimes they call it idle gossip, but the idle gossip is just one aspect of it. Yeah? Some people translate it like that. Yeah. So there are the four of the speech, right? Lying, slander, insulting words, and senseless talk. Yeah. So there are the four of the speech. Yeah? So the Buddha said, if you want happiness, you don't engage in those things because it's cause suffering. Yeah. And then the three of the mind. Yeah. So there's also three negativities of the mind. Covetousness. Yeah. So based on a very strong desire, wanting to have certain objects, you know. Yeah. So that's, yeah, that can be a cause for never being satisfied, and even a cause for stealing, you know. If you really want to have a certain kind of item and you cannot get it, it belongs to somebody else. Covetousness. Yeah. It's a state of mind. Yeah, that's the first one of the mind. The second one of the mind is harmful intent. Wishing to harm another person, or wishing to do something harmful to another person. Yeah, so that's also can cause physical or even or verbal harm. Yeah, so say my friend in prison, in central prison in Bangalore, based on anger and the harmful intent, you know, the same thing. He killed another human being. Yeah, he was not in control, emotional hijack, as we call it, and he committed a crime. Yeah, so that means that we see everything, that's why the Buddha puts so much emphasis on the mind, because everything is rooted within our intention, right? And mental states. So that's why, yeah. So that's the second one of the mind, right? Harmful intent, wish to harm somebody. Then the third one of the mind is kind of wrong views, incorrect views. Wrong view is not just a wrong view of what's the weather like tomorrow, and be wrong with that regards. You know, that's not really that negative. It's kind of a neutral thing, right? But the wrong view with regard to, oh, law of cause and effect doesn't exist. If you say law of cause and effect doesn't exist, it becomes an incredible obstacle to progress, right? Because things are in relation with cause and effect relationships. If you don't believe that, then you will never engage in spiritual, or forget spiritual, you will never even engage in a kind of universal aspect of subduing the mind from the point of view of counteracting destructive emotions and practicing constructive ones. If you think, oh, it's all not true, doesn't exist, law of cause and effect doesn't exist, you know, that's a general thing. But also, yeah, you can say, oh, the Four Noble Truths don't exist, you know, cause of suffering doesn't exist, you know, that's a kind of obstacle. Yeah, so that's being classified as a wrong view. Yeah, why it's an obstacle? Because it causes a kind of, not to progress, and that implies kind of suffering. Yeah, so that's why the Buddha said this number 10. Yeah, so we have the 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and the 3 of the mind. Yeah, there are the 10 non-virtues. So after the break, we will go into more depth to from the point of view of another classification of because that's another thing. We create certain aspects of karma, but there's different levels of if the karma either heavy or less heavy, right? Depending on intention, depending on the way we do things, depending on the being towards which we do things. For example, with killing a human being is being considered as more negative than killing an insect when you're stepping on it without intention, right? Yeah, that's both is an act of stopping the life force of another being. But killing a human being with an intention or just by accident stepping on top of an insect, there's two different things, right? So because of different factors being involved, then also the outcome of that, effect or action can become either more severe or less. Yeah, so, and nothing, but I said before, there's no escape from the law of cause and effect. We cannot change that, but we can play with causes and conditions and we can purify things, right? So then some people say, yeah, but I just don't know. When I step on an insect, you don't know. So why is that negative? That question always comes up, But you stop a life force, right? So although there's no intention, there's still something that is harmful to a being, right? You cannot say it's not harmful to that being, right? So, but it's not as heavy as intentional. There's a mosquito and you say, no, I'm going to get it, That's a different way. So I don't know, people still, you still kill insects or mosquitoes? Here, no mosquitoes. There was a big fly came into my room this morning, made a lot of noise. And then they opened the window and then went out again. But mosquitoes, cockroaches, I don't know what people do. We had a lot of cockroaches in our house in Sera. Now they're gone. Not gone, but not as much as before. Sometimes when you switch on the light in the evening, they went all directions. So we had a few sessions of a cockroach liberation project. So what we did, we catch the cockroaches. I don't know, in the UK you have cockroaches, no? Almost no. So, but we had a lot. Yeah. So we had a liberation project. So we caught all the cockroaches and then we took them around a holy object. Then you think, Namdak, what are you talking about? What is this? This is kind of the Buddhist aspect of a certain aspect of spirituality. Because for a cockroach or other being of what we call belongs to the animal realm or the animal birth, right? It's very difficult to get out of that state, to be born as a human, So the only way to get out of that state is to meet either a holy being or a holy object, So a holy being like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our spiritual kind of director of FPMT, he is amazing personality in general. I mean, if you meet him, it's very impressive. So he gives up sleep. He doesn't sleep anymore. It's kind of incredible yogi, So then once in Bodhgaya Bodhgaya has many mosquitoes, I tell you. Even if you have a mosquito net, sometimes they're able to come inside. So he let mosquitoes. So one day he opened all the windows, switched on the lights, and took off his upper garment and was just sitting like that. And it was just full of mosquitoes, And then he was just making a prayer. And then you think, oh no, this is kind of too much. What are you talking about? But actually what Rinpoche did is made a connection with these beings, And then pray that in the future they're able to help them. So that's amazing, So that means that animals and insects in those states of rebirth, very difficult to get out unless they meet a holy being like this or a holy object. So in our garden in Sera Je Monastery, maybe once we can go on pilgrimage, I was thinking, after all this virus business goes out of the planet. Maybe it takes another few months, so something like that. Yeah, maybe a few months, end of the year. But so that means that there's holy objects also in our house. We are very fortunate to have received many holy objects. We included relics, like little pills of Buddha. Very amazing. So when we were building the stupas, then a friend of mine, we had this kind of containers, little stupas, to put inside the big stupa. You know, stupa, right? It's kind of this holy shrine. So then we were collecting the different relics to put in different stupas. Very interesting. Oh, there was some incense, and I didn't burn incense. Very interesting science. And then I said to my friend, do you also feel the bliss between here and here? He said, yes, exactly the same. Interesting. So there's a power of holy objects, you know. So yeah, scientifically it's very difficult to prove. You know, another thing, when a holy being before passed away, Rinpoche from Nyingma tradition actually, when he went to make prayers the last day in the temple, there was a rainbow this size all the way around the temple and through the garden. And one of my friends from Bangalore, he was there and he filmed it. And he was quite skeptical, and his friends also skeptical, and they analyzed it. And he said, you cannot make something like this. So there are things sometimes we find difficult to, or the Geshe Lama Kunchok, when he passed away, Geshe Lama Kunchok, he lived for 9 years without food or drink. So that by itself is already for some people kind of, yeah, too much. Maybe you think what I'm talking about now is all too much for you, but it's sometimes interesting to see the power of the mind. So he produced relics at the time of cremation, like his ribs. You can see, you can see like pearls popping up out of the ribs, you know. So then you analyze it, you put it in the lab and you say, yeah, it's a pearl. But we cannot really prove how it actually has been, yeah, anyway, so there's a lot of questions there, but yeah, it's interesting. So then you have these holy relics, and then you take those insects, you put them around it, and they create a connection, you know, with something like that. So there's a possibility in future lifetimes. Yes, karma is interdependence, you know. So then we had this cockroach liberation project, and then we released them, you know, in the wild, but some came back. Yeah, but yeah, so that means that even creatures, they have consciousness, you know. An insect has consciousness, has feeling. When I was young, also I didn't know, you know, the young children, sometimes they don't know. Many people still think that animals don't have feeling, but you can check. You know, when you do like this, the fly goes away because it's scared, right? Yeah? So, or animals, the feeling. When you go to the slaughterhouse, you can see, you know, there's feeling. So that means that they also have this consciousness. Yeah? So that means that based on that aspect, that Buddha said, don't act in the aspect of killing. And so that's why very interesting stories about Tibetans who went to work, do a job without much education, and then they go to, because some of them, they think America is the Pure Lands. You know, we have all kind of pure lands in Buddhism, so they didn't study properly, so they think America is a Pure Land. So they go there, and then they don't have education properly, and then they have to do, you know, working restaurants and all kind of not the top jobs, so to say. So then, you know, then one of them, very interesting story, he was also catching the cockroaches because he grew up like that, not to kill them. And then a few people thought, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, some people won't understand it and think, yeah, it's all nonsense. But generally, if you analyze, even an insect has consciousness, right? So that means that it has a wish to survive, has a wish for happiness. Yeah, so that's why the Buddha said, don't act in act of killing. Yeah, so of course, there's a difference between killing without intention and killing with intention. Yeah, and also from the point of view of the object, either a human being or an insect, right? So both are negative, but there's a difference in the heaviness. Yeah, or from the point of view of your intention or the way you kill. Yeah, there's also many aspects to that. Yeah, yeah. So then after the break, I was thinking to talk about because just before the break, or not. 4 points. You ready? 4 more points? Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Then you can in the break forget it, and then after the break, we go over it again. Yeah, so you see. What I do, I give you a list, then I give you a story, then I give you a list, I give you a story. So yeah, try to keep people on the other side, because I can see where people drop out, you know. Yeah. So yeah, so that means that to make a karmic action complete or not depends on 4 factors. 4, very important. This 4 is very important. So the first one is the basis. Yeah, basis. The basis or the object, so to say. So for the act of killing, for example, killing a human being. So the basis of the act is other human being, right? Yeah, the basis. The second one, mostly translated as intention. Yeah, so you put 1, basis, 2, intention. And intention has 3, A, B, and C. Yeah, I just visualize how you're writing things down. So, intention, A, B, and C. So what are A, B, and C? Motivation, A, right? Because motivation is, yeah, what intention is related with motivation. Yeah. B, you can, yeah, discriminating or discriminating factor. Yeah, the possibility to discriminate. It's a human being, or the object I like to kill is John and not Peter. You know? Yeah, so that's a factor that has to be complete for a complete act. B, 2B, discrimination. In a monastery, we never do like this. You just give a list and then you memorize. There's no kind of structure, no PowerPoint, no whiteboards, no blackboards even. Everything is just straight. And in the early days, we were not allowed to record. Now we have here a recorder, you record. But in the monastery, when we're studying, like we had just in 19, and we started in 1997. And we had this kind of tape recorders, right? In those days, you know, with the tapes. You still remember? TDK kind of tapes, yeah? So, so yeah, but those teachers, they would not allow people to put it on the desk. They say, you pay attention. If you don't remember what I say, you debate in the evening and you ask me tomorrow or day after. You know, they were quite strict because, yeah. Anyway, that's the oral tradition of the Buddhist teaching, you know. But if you get used to it, then for later on, when you do meditation, then you can contemplate, you know, then the mind is trained. Like with Geshe Rinpoche, he memorized everything. When he did his 19-year retreat, he did 19-year retreat with only a mala, nothing else. Very simple room, and a mala, and no texts. He had memorized everything. It's mind-boggling. So anyway, that's another tradition. So we have to go to number B. To B means discrimination, right? The mental factor, discrimination. A was, I feel like a school teacher of kindergarten almost. Yeah. So A, B. C is affliction. Because if an affliction is strong, then the act can be more disastrous, right? If there's a complete emotional hijack without control, then it can be, you know, people get angry, they start to do strange things, you know. The control goes out of the window, you know. In a protest, same thing. If it's a peaceful protest, everything is okay. But if a few people start to generate anger, then the whole group goes, and then there goes the peaceful aspect. Yeah. So affliction, number 3. Yeah. So number C, 2C, right? Yeah. Because 3 is action, deed, the act. Yeah? So we have kind of an object or basis. Then we have a mental aspect, those 3 we just talked about. And then a physical or verbal behavior with physical and verbal behaviors, right? So that's the act or the deed. Yeah, we either kill another human being or we say something nasty to another person, right? That's number 3, the deed or the act. Number 4 is the completion. For example, the person dies. Yeah? So that's the completion of the act. Yeah? So number 3 is the act, and number 4 is the completion. Yeah? So number 3 is the act of killing, and number 4 is that the person actually dies as a result of it. Yeah? So that's number 4. Or with lying, the person understands what you are talking about. Yeah? Though it's deceiving the person, but the person understands. Yeah? After the break, I'll give you an example of 1 or 2 examples of the 10 non-virtues. Yeah? Yeah, at least now we have the outline. Yeah. So exactly we're on schedule, 11:30. It says tea break. Yeah, so it says here tea break for half an hour. Do we need half an hour or is 20 minutes enough? 20 minutes, if people do like this, then it's okay, or you can do like this. Yeah, so if you do like the Indian way, then I don't really know, but if you do like, yes, yeah, okay, 20 minutes, yeah. Because, yeah, the more time we have together, the more information we can convey, right? And then after the break, because also we have to do some meditation, so after the break, I will cover some more material, then we do meditation, and we have, of course, question and answer session. Yeah? Okay, enjoy your coffee or tea, and then see you in 20 minutes, exactly. Yeah, okay, see you soon.